The amount of times I've talked about making this video, finally! Welcome everyone to part 1 of my Outer Banks videos. How many videos will I have? I don't know. I haven't decided yet. By the way, just to let you guys know, I'm feeling incredibly sick today, so if I'm a little bit out of it, that's probably why. And also, outside, it's incredibly windy, so if you hear like... That's not me passing gas, that's the wind outside. But who's to say I won't pass gas in this video? I can just cut it out. Anyway, with the final season of Outer Banks coming up, I thought I should discuss each of the Outer Banks main characters because I have thoughts and I love yapping, and I also want to see if people have similar thoughts to me. With that said, of course, I want to hear your thoughts, so please let me know in the comments what you think about the characters, who are your favorites, and what you hope will happen in season 5. Without further ado, let's just jump into it. I don't really have any strong feelings about John B as a character, to be honest. I feel like he is effective enough as a protagonist. From what I observed, John B is pretty much the quintessential teen show male protagonist, where they are positioned as the straight man slash everyman. All things considered, John B is effective enough to fulfill that role while still having his own personality and agency. However, I do feel John B suffers what I call the Scott McCall syndrome. The Teen Wolf girlies and fans will know what I'm talking about. While I don't find Scott McCall to be as bland of a character as a lot of people would claim him to be, I think his character is easily overlooked because he is surrounded by other characters who are infinitely more interesting and charismatic than him. Like for example, Styles or Lydia or Allison. Because of that, they're just kind of like, they're fun, but they're just in the background and you would much rather follow the other characters. But I also feel that at the same time, because as main characters or the everyman character, John B or Scott need to remain somewhat of a blank slate, so viewers can self-insert themselves into these characters. Because of that whole thing, I feel John B is fine enough as a character that can still push things along and have somewhat of an interesting development, but he is also very milquetoast because he has to be the audience entry point into the world, so he can't be too complicated. At least that's how I feel. He's fine. I don't have any particularly strong feelings about him. I guess by virtue of Sarah being the love interest of the main character and being the daughter of the main villain for about 2 to 3 seasons of the show, Sarah gets a lot of screen time in comparison to the other female characters. Due to that, I would say Sarah has more time to be developed. I do like the duality of Sarah where she can be friendly and amicable with a lot of people, and she is generally good-natured and kind, but on the other side of that, she also struggles with letting people in to the extent that she self-sabotages herself so she wouldn't have to like open up to these people. So I guess some people wouldn't like the fact that she cheated on John B at some point in season 3, but I think that's consistent with her character, considering she also cheated on Topper with John B in season 1. But overall, I think that's a reaction over her fears of commitment, of being in long-term relationships, and you know what, I welcome that. Not that I condone cheating, but I like the flaws that she has, and I think it makes her feel more real. Of course, yes, it's incredibly frustrating that she cheats on a lot of people, but are human beings not made of duality? I suppose I'm more forgiving of her because at least I understand why she does what she did, which I cannot say the same for several other characters. The biggest thing I wish though for Sarah is that I wish they dedicate more time into seeing how she bonds with the other pogues. The thing is, Sarah has been a kook for most of her life, and it's just a missed opportunity to not develop her relationships with the others apart from John B, and also to see her adjusting to her new life. We do get some of it in season 3, but I wish we get a little bit more because again, I feel like she revolves so much around John B that we don't get enough interactions between her with the other characters. I feel the show really relied on the chemistry between the actors to say that Sarah is officially part of the Pogue family instead of actually giving the time to develop those relationships. I am conflicted about the plot of her getting pregnant. Overall, pregnancy plots are a little bit like hit or miss for me, but I'll wait for season 5 before I make my judgment on that plotline. I would say that Pope is probably my favorite out of the whole character roster, and that's because the writers gave him stakes and consequences to his actions. His loyalty to his friends lands him in a lot of trouble, and that creates tension in his attempts to, for example, to retain his scholarships, or to avoid being sent to the military, or to not disappoint his parents. For a lot of writers, myself included, sometimes I feel like when you're writing stakes, like it has to be this really big thing, but it's not necessarily the case. Sometimes stakes do not have to be that big, but the stakes have to be big for the characters. Pope's stakes with his like scholarship and his relationship with his parents, it's not like Avengers level threat where the world is gonna end, but for Pope it's still a big thing, and that's why I think he feels more rounded compared to the other characters. Because the writers took the time to establish stakes for Pope, whenever he ends up choosing one decision over the other, he has to experience consequences, and these consequences actually pushed him to grow as a character. I would say the Pope that you meet in season 1 is different than the one that you meet in the season 4 finale. I also think we feel so much of his character development because we spend a significant amount of time with him and his other relationships outside of the friend group, like for example with his parents. And this is something that I think is lacking for a lot of the other characters, just the audience being able to see their lives outside of the friend group, or maybe to explore how their codependency on this friend group is damaging for their outside life. But either way, I feel knowing the characters outside of the Poke friend group is important because I think as a human being, you are not defined by just like one friend group, right? You are a person of multitudes. There are surely other facets to you that make up your being, and that includes the different relationships that you have. Like I have my friends at work, and then I have my friends at school, and I'm different when I'm interacting with my coworkers, and I'm also different when I'm interacting with my school friends. And that whole thing I think make Pope feel the most tangible as a character for me, and why he feels more rounded, because he has stakes, he experiences consequences, and we actually see his life outside of the friend group. I know a lot of people really love JJ, but controversial opinion, I think he's just fine. He serves his purpose, but to be honest, and spoilers alert, I wasn't really that moved when he died. The amount of love that JJ received is akin to the way that a lot of people really love Styles from Teen Wolf, and the parallels between them are abundant. They are the sarcastic best friends of the main characters. They are loyal to the friend group. They're also both tropes of characters that I would say the writers did pretty well, with Styles being the nerd archetype and JJ being the bad boy archetype. And also, they're both white. Just because I don't rank JJ highly on my list, it doesn't mean I don't see the merit of his character. I do think he's pretty fascinating. I think his self-destructive tendencies made him interesting. He's just a young man who doesn't have a family necessarily in a traditional sense, so he latches onto the one that he has with the Pokes. And he's prepared to bring down those people with him as long as they remain a family. He's loyal, but to what extent? And I like that question that they asked with him as a character. Yes, it was frustrating to see JJ blew the money that he had to buy a hot tub, or when he didn't pay for the rent mortgage thing that the Pokes had to pay. But that's his way of keeping the family together because he doesn't want to lose his family. And I think it feels incredibly real for a character like him, even if it's annoying. The only gripe that I have with JJ is that his death prevented him from getting more character development. Like, you're starting to understand more why he is the way that he is in season 4, but he won't be learning anything from his mistakes or from his journey in season 4, and I think that's a missed opportunity. And it incredibly sucks that when he is getting the much needed development, they killed him off. In general, this is a problem that I have with writers, and not just the Outer Banks writers. There's this thing they do when a character is about to be killed off. That's when the character is given so many development, and I think they do this because they want the audience to feel more attached to the character, so that when the character is killed off, the audience would have like a more visceral reaction. This is something that happened with Laurel Lance in Arrow. Not to be mean, I feel like she's kind of like a nothing burger character. But at some point, she got more endearing because she got decent development, and she was also building good dynamics with other characters, but then they killed her off, and they only did all that development and all that relationship building because they know the audience isn't that attached to Laurel, so they have to do all these work so that the death would be more meaningful. And I just think that sucks, man. The writers want to create an emotional death, and that's why they only did the character development, and I'm sorry, that's kind of lazy. What happens to just developing the characters because you want to develop them and not just because you want to kill them off? Anyway, JJ is fine. Kiara frustrates me sometimes because more than anything, I feel she's a missed potential. I wish we could spend more time with her and that the writers would develop her more. At the moment, I feel the most I can say about Kiara is that despite being half-cooked, she rejects that side of her. But why? I don't particularly get the reason why she acts the way that she acts. So I just feel that she's rebellious for the sake of being rebellious, because she's a teenager, not because she has a good reason behind being rebellious. I want to know what happened with her and her parents that she she ends up liking defying them. I know we got a diagnosis from the Kitty Hawk camp, but I don't even know if we should trust the diagnosis because the way they portray the place is like this oppressive space where they will do anything that they could to keep the girls in the location. So did they say that to make Kiara's condition bigger than it already is, so she has to stay in the place? Or is it because she is genuinely as she is diagnosed with? But yeah, I just want to know more about Kiara. What's her background? Why is she interested in nature? What's her connection with nature? Does that tie into her rejection of being half cook? I want to know her perspective. That's my biggest thing with her. We never get into seeing her perspective of things. I want to know why she does the things that she does. Like for example, stay with her parents. Whenever Kiara rebels against them, I don't understand why she does that. And it doesn't help that her parents are being pretty reasonable in trying to stop her from hanging out with the pokes. Because last time she did, she got washed up on a deserted island for a couple of months. Her parents probably presumed her dead. So I understand why her parents wouldn't let her hang out with them. But what is so repulsive about her parents that Kiara just doesn't want to hang out with them? And the thing is, I don't mind if Kiara makes decisions that I don't agree with. I welcome any characters making decisions that I don't agree with, but I just want to know the reasons why Kiara makes those decisions or why these characters make those decisions. Take for example Jenny Humphrey from Gossip Girl. I get incredibly frustrated with Jenny. She annoys me sometimes. However, we spend enough time with her and the writers actually made it clear why she does the things that she does, even if she makes bad decisions. The writers established Jenny's obsession with the upper class and her ambition when it comes to her fashion career. As a result, I understand why she might willingly try to hurt Blair or sabotage Serena, because I know that she will do anything to be part of the Upper East Side, and I know that she wants to build her fashion career, even if it comes at a cost. The same way with Blair Waldorf from Gossip Girl 2. She schemes, she's conniving, but you understand why she's like that. She doesn't feel loved by her mom. She feels overshadowed by Serena van der Woodsen. No wonder she clings onto control by being conniving. I wish Kiara is afforded the same care. I do see the potential of her as a character, but I want to know the reasons for her anger, her rebellious nature, her love and loyalty for her pogue friends. What's going on in her home life? What happened at the Cook Academy that she became estranged from Sarah and that side of her? How did she develop an interest in nature? How did she even meet the pogues? I do like Cleo, but she is another case where I feel like we don't have enough time with the character to fully feel like she's her own character. At this rate, she feels more like a supporting character to Pope's side plots. I think her position as someone not from Outer Banks can afford us a very interesting point of view, but they never really do anything with it, to be honest. I also like her arc that I think they want to explore with her desire to have a family, something stable for once in her life, but I don't like the way that that arc is just framed around Pope. What happens to her friendship with the other pogues? I'm just saying, if the writers want to explore her want of a family, maybe she ought to interact with the other members of her newfound family. I wish there was more from her, because the small character moments we got from her is incredibly endearing. I like that she's a tough girl, but that she's also super sensitive and she yearns for her family. It reminds me of Gamora and Nebula from Guardians of the Galaxy. These young girls who have been through the ringer and forced to develop these hardened shells and skills because they need to survive. But deep down, they're just sensitive souls who want companionship and family. And there's so much that you can explore there. But we don't delve enough into Cleo to know more about her. So with that said, let's talk about the elephant in the room. I feel like there's a discrepancy between the writing of the female characters versus the male characters in Outer Banks. The male characters are allowed to be as messy as they want, whereas I feel the writers are holding back when it comes to the female characters, as if they're scared of giving the female characters flaws or conflict out of maybe the fear that the female characters may come across as unlikable or too flawed. I think this is bad because we are then robbed of the characters feeling like actual characters, and as a result, the development just rings hollow because there's not even a lot of development. However, looking at the state of fandom and the way that some spaces just cannot be normal about female characters, like they cannot have good faith discussions about female characters, just look at what happened to the new Supergirl movie. I really like Supergirl in the new movie. Like, I think she's so much fun. I think she's such a good character. And I think like Millie Alcock did such an amazing job with the character, but people just cannot be normal about her. They cannot have like normal conversations about the character or her actress. But we don't even have to go that far outside of the fandom 2. Just look at the way that the Outer Banks fandom also talk about the female characters. Kiara doesn't get analyzed as much as characters like JJ or Rafe, and I feel that her importance is mostly relegated to her ships. I understand that shipping is fun, but I do not care who she ends up with, and it seems like a lot of people are more concerned about whether or not Kiara will remain loyal to JJ or if she will end up with Rafe. I don't care about that. I'm more interested in exploring her grief and her anger in season 5. And I truly hope that season 5 is Kiara's season. This is what also frustrates me about the show. Each of the male characters have their own seasons where they are the focus of. John B has season 1 and season 3, Pope has season 2, JJ has season 4. I know that John B is the main character, but why do we even need 2 seasons with him as the focus? I know that we get a lot of development from Sarah in season 3, but I also feel like season 3 could have been Sarah's season with a couple of John B stuff in the background. I think the whole season can be refrained from Sarah's point of view. I'm just saying, what about the women? A lot of people are huge fans of Rafe because of Draco Malfoy, I guess. A terrible man, but people like him for having daddy issues. I guess a lot of people want to fix him. I'm not saying everyone does, but I'm saying like maybe a lot of people find the appeal from that. He's fine for me. I think again, he's a male character, so he's allowed to be as messy as he wants. And a lot of people excuse the messy behavior, maybe because they think Drew Starkey is hot. So the egregious crimes that he did are forgivable for a lot of people, where I feel like if the behavior is like from Kiara, not a lot of people would excuse that for her. I'm just saying. However, for Rafe, at least in my opinion, he's more effective and infinitely more interesting as an antagonist when he's plotting against everyone else. As the writers try to give him a redemption arc, I think it feels rushed. It's like they're trying to bank on Drew Starkey's popularity, that they want to make him good and redeem him, and I think that's fine, but I also think it flattens his character because the development is so sudden. Like suddenly in season 4, Rafe is good and he's a little bit more normal than usual, and I'm like, ooh, I would have loved to see the gradual development instead of having like, oh, suddenly he's better. I just feel like his character had a sudden 180, but I also like it when he's more of an antagonist because that's also another thing. I feel the show doesn't really delve into the poke versus cook dynamic, which would have been interesting, but they didn't really try to do anything with it. If you observe, the biggest thing I kept complaining about is that I wish we have more time with the characters, and that's because I just want more episodes. I miss shows when they have like 13 plus episodes, even 22 episodes, because these episodes allow the screen time to develop these characters. We can complain all we want about filler episodes, but sometimes good filler episodes can help develop the characters and build upon the themes and the world of the story. For example, Avatar: The Last Airbender does this incredibly well. Episodes like Tales of Ba Sing Se, or even the first half of season 3 where they were just like meandering around the Fire Nation, they might feel inconsequential, but if you analyze it deeper, these episodes are important for the characters and also to build the world they inhabit. Sure, it doesn't propel the plot the way that we might want, but the episodes make the world feel more real and make the characters more layered because these episodes are driven by the characters instead of being used to push the plot around. As a result, the story becomes more tactile and more tangible. I feel shows these days are more focused on, hey, let's have an amazing twisty plot that people can't guess, or let's one up the adventures that the characters have from previous seasons. And that's what I feel happens with Outer Banks, because what do you mean the kids went from treasure hunting in Outer Banks and now they're traveling to Morocco and Croatia? What about the things happening at home? Even the stuff about the kooks and the pokes and the class divide doesn't really get delved into because they have to get the characters overseas. I don't know, I just feel like that premise becomes salad dressing, where I feel there could be a lot of interesting things coming out of that dynamic and rivalry. And I think it impacts Kiara greatly, especially because her character is half cook and half poke. Since this divide isn't as important in the later seasons, Kiara's biggest struggle of having both feet in both worlds lead to nothing. However, I want to cap this video off by saying one more controversial thing. More than the actual Gossip Girl sequel series, I feel like Outer Banks is probably more of a spiritual successor to the original Gossip Girl, where consistently the actors' chemistry and charisma are what carried the seasons. Especially as the seasons get progressively more and more over the top, the only difference is that the progression of how ridiculous and crazy the plot in Gossip Girl, like it's not as obvious and it feels more gradual because they have so many episodes per season, so it doesn't feel that sharp of a turn. Gossip Girl was slower in dwindling into chaos. It was only in season 5 where Blair is about to be shipped off to be the Queen of Monaco and she was like blackmailed blackmailed by an evil priest and an evil mother-in-law, and she even made a covenant with God to spare Chuck from dying. And it's all these really ridiculous stuff, but that's like 80 to 90 episodes into the show. In Outer Banks, in season 3, they're already searching for El Dorado, and they actually found El Dorado. But considering the episode count, it's very jarring because it's only after 20 to 30 episodes. So it's like, oh yeah, we're going treasure hunting for all these things that has a historical past, and then suddenly they're like, oh, now we're going to El Dorado. No wonder people are saying if suddenly they put in like supernatural elements into the show, they wouldn't be surprised. In Gossip Girl time, this El Dorado plotline will be happening around season 1 or season 2. Imagine if the season 1 finale of Gossip Girl is Blair being blackmailed into being the Queen of Monaco. But I digress. That's the end of part 1 of my multi-part Outer Banks videos. I don't think there's going to be a lot of parts, so I don't know why I said multi-part. I'm out of it, guys. I'm sick. But anyway, thank you so much for making me part of your day by watching this video. If you like this video, please leave it a like, comment, and share the video as well if you want to. Let me know if you agree with my thoughts, and if you disagree, please leave a comment as well. I would love to hear from you, but please be kind. I am incredibly sensitive. Also, consider subscribing to the channel too for more commentaries, video essays, fun videos. But I'll leave you guys to it. I need to go get some rest. I'm also so upset. Like, I was planning on watching Minions and Monsters, but then I got sick, and I'm like, I'm not about to go to the movie theater to watch a Minions movie and get even sicker. So I'll watch the other movies, I suppose. Anywho, have a good day, night, dusk, dawn, evening, afternoon, middle of the night. I was about to say midnight, but middle of the night is midnight. Also, if it's sunrise, if it's sunset, I'm not judging if you watch this so early in the morning. I'm also a morning person. But whatever time it is for you guys, I hope you have a good time. And I hope to see you in the next episode. I mean video. What do I mean episode? And I hope to see you in the next video. Why was I buffering for that? Bye!